Also class.
Okay, sorry to keep you waiting. We're up here chatting, but we're chatting about nothing. Welcome to the Board of Adjustments here. Today, we're going to begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Barbara, could you lead us in that Pledge of Allegiance? And then we'll have a word of prayer. Wes, do you mind leading us a word of prayer?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this opportunity that we have to have a hearing here and to discuss matters of Provo policy. And please help us to communicate well and to understand each other in our needs, and that the best resolution can come out of this. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks, Barbara and Wes. We're going to begin, we only have one item on the agenda today. What we'll do is we'll read in the agenda. We'll then turn some time over to the staff for their presentation. Following the staff presentation, we'll then have the applicant come forward and make a presentation at the podium. And we'll go to that point and continue on with some questions and general discussions from there. The nice thing is that since we only have one item, we can dig down into it tonight, and if the applicant doesn't like the decision, there is always an opportunity for appeal, and the Provo City staff can give that information to you as to how to appeal this decision should it not go in your favor tonight. So let's begin with item number one. Andrew Payne requests an appeal of an administrative decision to the Board of Adjustment to allow a duplex at 266 South, 100 West in the general downtown DT1 zone. And Ellen, I believe, is our staff person coordinating this. We'll turn your time over to you.
Hello, members of the Board of Adjustment. My name is Ellen Karen, and I will be presenting the reasons Provo City recognized 266 South 100 West as a single-family dwelling in a zone verification issued to Andrew Payne, the owner of the home. 266 South 100 West was built in 1921. Here are some photographs, one from 2003 and one from 2018. In 1955, it was separated from 136 West 200 South, which is this lot to the west here. So the only time frame the lot size was large enough to have allowed a two-family dwelling was prior to 1955, when it was combined with 136 West 200 South. From 1974 until now, two-family dwellings have not been a permitted use in the zone. Currently, it is located in the general downtown zone. The two central issues are whether the home was built as a duplex or legally converted prior to 1955, and whether it has consistently been used as such since then. The surrounding zone is the general downtown zone, which allows mixed use, medium and high density residential, and a large number of commercial and non-residential uses. The block surrounding 266 South 100 West is all commercial, mostly auto sales businesses. This is designated by the diagonal lines on the zoning map. Here. Other permitted uses in the zone are 3 and 4 unit dwellings shown in gray on the zoning map and designated as multifamily. The zone only allows single and two-family dwellings detached from commercial if they were existing that way prior to 2009. Otherwise, 1 and 2 family dwellings must be attached to a commercial or non-residential use. The single and two-family dwellings are shown on the zoning map in the solid blue and gray-blue gradient. Many of the surrounding homes were built around the same time as 266 South 100 West in the early 1920s and prior. While some of them were converted to commercial uses or multifamily dwellings, most of them were originally built as single-family dwellings. Here are some examples of other houses in the area here. The basement and ground floor are disconnected. You enter the ground floor here, which is facing 100 West, and enter the basement back here, which is also shown in this picture here. It's on the back facade of the home facing the backyard. The basement has its own kitchen, which appears newer. There has only ever been one address for the entire home, one electrical meter, and one heat source, which is more characteristic of a single-family dwelling. Also, the only building permit taken out on the home was in 2006 for some electrical work. Given a lack of documented evidence for how the home has changed over the last 85 years, it's hard to say exactly how the basement was intended to be used. The entrance being towards the back and the low ceiling height in the basement seem more like an area to store utilities. This home was built in 1921, so the basement could have once been used for coal storage and a coal furnace. According to Chapter 14.36.090 of the Provo City Code, a nonconforming use is considered abandoned if the use is discontinued for a minimum of 1 year. The code's definition of abandonment of a nonconforming use has not changed significantly since 1949. If 266 South 100 West was built as a two-family dwelling, it would have been considered nonconforming from 1974 on, due to it not being a permitted use in the zone. There is no record of it being used as a two-family dwelling in Polk and Cole community directories except in 1943 and more recently from 2012 to 2017. There has never been a second address. Additionally, a rental dwelling license was obtained by Milton Christensen in 2004, who owned the home from 2002 until 2014. On the rental application, he listed the home as being a single-family dwelling comprised of one unit. On the rental dwelling license, the city recognized the legal use as a single-family dwelling. The rental license was active for 10 years. Polk and Cole directories reflect that the home was used by a single family until 2012. It seems more likely that the home was built as a single-family dwelling. However, if it was built as a two-family dwelling, it would have lost its non-conforming right in 2004 with the rental dwelling license, if not much earlier. Natalie Anderson owned the home from 2015 to 2017 and rented it as a two-family dwelling, which was not permitted. She did not obtain a rental dwelling license. In summary, 266 South 100 West was recognized as a single-family dwelling in 2004. The owner at the time agreed with it being a single-family dwelling. Polk and Cole community directories reflect that the home was rented to a single family for most of the time it was rented. Before 2004, it was not occupied by two families. There has never been a second address. There is only one heat source and one electrical meter, and no building permits to document what changes might have occurred over the last 85 years. The evidence supports it being built as a single-family dwelling. However, if it was built as a two-family dwelling, it lost its legal nonconforming right and has reverted to a single-family dwelling. I'm done, sorry.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate that. Does anyone from the board have any questions of the staff?
Okay, there we go. Does this qualify as a mother-in-law apartment?
No, well, there's not a lot of evidence for when the second kitchen would have been added. If you're referring to mother-in-law as a legal second kitchen in a single-family dwelling, it wouldn't have been permitted from 1996 on. It's not permitted in the current zone, but we're not really sure when the second kitchen was added.
Thank you.
The answer to the question is no.
Just a question, and I don't know when I need to disclose this, Bill, but did you speak to the previous owners at all?
No.
Okay. So I don't know how much information I need to share. So to the public, I'm new on the board, and so I make mistakes, which I was just told, but I called the previous owner just to check because I was like, hey, the number's here, I'm gonna call. And I will share that information if need be. Should I share it right now or, okay. So, and this will kind of go along with what Andrew or Drew, I don't know which one you go by, yeah, what you share with us, but I called Milton Christensen and his wife answered. Milton has passed away, and she shared that they rented it for longer than what they had. They had owned it, but it was just different companies had owned it because they had a bunch of houses that they'd rent, and they would rent it as a single family. I know this isn't like the best information for you guys necessarily, but they shared it as they rented it as a single family, and she said, and maybe you can explain, I don't know who this guy is, but he looks professional here too or something, yeah. I'm just a friend, okay, cool. But she said that there actually was a stairs that went in through the back by the laundry room area. And I don't know, she said that in 2007, see, I don't know how, this lady talked forever. She was like in her 80s and she was just sharing lots of stuff. And, but she said that in 2007, they didn't get any building permits. They had a guy come in and do the kitchen downstairs and like redo stuff. And then they would sometimes rent, the people upstairs might have sublet it and they might have rented to the basement people, but she wasn't aware of that. They weren't aware of it. So, and she said that they didn't keep tabs on it super well, so it may have been rented, the basement, somehow that way. But at the time, she said that, I don't know if you can, where this works, but she said that right here, so you walked in here, and then right here, the laundry room, it was really awkward, but there was a small little like stairwell that went down, and I think this thing's not working anymore, and it was connected to this, so, right, so this is above this right here. And she said that it was really awkward with the laundry room, but it would go up and go down. And so she's like, it would make sense that somebody close it off because it didn't make sense with the house. So that I needed to share that because I broke the rules or something, I guess, by calling her. So anyway, I just putting that on the record.
Thanks for the information. That's good. So, quick question though, Ellen, on that, and I think that's helpful information, but I'm confused as to the property status and the back lot and the point of the back lot. And was it originally one big lot and then it was subdivided? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so before, so Mr. Payne provided evidence, deeds that showed 136 West, 300 South was originally connected to this property, and then from 1955, it was subdivided.
So prior to 1955, then, it was a large enough lot to have a two-dwelling unit at that time?
Yes,
Property, sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, per the zoning regulations of that year, it would have been allowed.
When it was subdivided in 1955, then that shrunk the lot and therefore disqualified it at that point in time from the zone. Is that the understanding?
The lot size would have been considered non-conforming from that point.
Basically meaning that like if they built it as a duplex before 1955, which is they built in 21, so it would have just grandfathered in. If it was built as a duplex before then, it would have been fine staying as a duplex, even though after 55 the law changed, right?
Yeah, so the point I was making is if it was built, the only time frame it would have been feasible to have existed is if it was built or converted before 1955. It couldn't have been converted following 1955 because it wouldn't have complied with the regulations after that date.
I see. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Other questions for Ellen?
I believe the current building codes require a furnace per unit.
Yes.
And that's been that way for how long?
I'm not sure how long it's been like that. If it were considered a two-family dwelling being rented today, we would require it comply with certain health and safety regulations and require that they add a second furnace for the other unit.
And a mother-in-law's apartment requires it to be a family member that.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to have family, and you couldn't rent it out as a second unit.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, we may come back to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's have the applicant come up, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, stating your name, and provide us with your presentation. That would be great.
Hello, my name is Andrew Payne, and here's my short presentation. I'll tell you why I got here and the reason. When I purchased this property, as it was, it looked like a duplex. I actually bought it with hard money from a lender, and I went to finance it, and they said, well, it's not a single family because it was not connected, so we can't finance it that way. Is it a duplex? City said, no, it's not a duplex. So I called to get a zone verification, which Ellen so gratefully did for me. And then after that, I was in talking with the city, and she said, well, you should appeal it just in case, and so that's why we're here. with that beautiful slideshow and what you've said, I already can see kind of what I'm getting into and the problems of this being a duplex, but I'll still give my quick presentation. These are interior walls downstairs. The ceiling height is low, like she said, in certain areas, but those are heater ducts. The average size of the basement is 8 feet. This is lath and plaster, as you can see coming through, and some wallpaper showing that it's been interior walls for some time throughout the years. I can't put a specific date on that, but he said lath and plaster would have been 1960 and before. So I know that there was interior walls in the house at that time. How do I move this forward? Okay. Also more lath and plaster. This is lath and plaster and more wallpaper, and I'll move through these quicker. And that's the full wall. This is an exterior wall that has plaster straight over it, no framing around it. All the outlets come through non-traditional areas, showing that it wasn't framed on the outside, and it was done way before framing of the 60s and 70s. Also one more wall showing, I wish the lighting was better, showing you could see that that's pure on concrete, no insulation and no framing, dating it clear back probably to the 50s. Here's the exterior brick pattern, undisturbed. As Ellen and I agree on so many things here, the brick pattern's undisturbed, and this was built this way, not cut in at a later time.
That's the back door.
That's the back door. I did redo the floors and painted. Everything else was as it was. The windows here, I'm guessing it shows the 2 letters that I put in there. I had two specialists come and look at it. One was an architect and one was a restoration specialist. Restoration specialist said the windows were bigger than normal for that time period, and it shows that they weren't cut into the concrete, showing that it was some sort of habitation in the basement, which would make sense if it was connected, which I did not know, which I probably wouldn't be here right now. Moving forward, this tile is about from the 90s. This is the lower ceiling area because that's all a vent duct. I would definitely separate the heating and electrical if it was a duplex and if permitted to do so. Exterior windows and foundation, trying to show that the existing brick pattern was undisturbed with the metal plates there, and that's how it was. That's how the house was being built, with larger windows for habitation in the basement. This is the basement. These cabinets date around 2003 from a cabinet guy's guesstimate. The electrical stove is more in the 90s. I actually opened that up and checked the SKUs on that, showing they dated probably 90 to 92. This was an older cabinet they left in there, so the restoration guy thinks they kept that cabinet and the stove when they put in a new kitchen. Were you the inspector that came by? I can't remember. Okay. Sorry. The inspector said that they had some piping in the basement that was from the 70s, so I know that they had some piping from them. This is just showing probably 80s or 90s phone because they are different now. So I'm just showing throughout the years they've had different, this is a carpet from about 2005. I went to a carpet guy and got that. Here's the parking, backyard we redid. Here's the next door. This is a fourplex. It sits right next door to me. This is next door on the other side. I took a picture of the 2 front doors, 282 and 284. That was not supposed to pop up there. These are mail. I thought I switched those out. I'll have to go back. That was mail from some of the people before, just showing there was recent people that lived there. I had some pictures, and I guess I didn't download, of across the street, and it's industrial or commercial right across the street from tire center and pawn shops and whatnot. So I guess that's pretty much the end of my presentation and reasons I thought it was habited for so long. I figured it actually did fall into that. But with that staircase kind of throws all that out, and I understand that situation a little more now. So that's my presentation. I do feel the best use of that is a duplex, especially where it sits. I also understand the rules it has to comply with, and that's it.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the presentation. Appreciate
Sure.
you being here as well. Do we have any questions for Andrew?
So you bought this under the understanding that it was a duplex?
Yes, I did not do a zone verification before, and I don't think there ever had been one done before. So I went to get financing for it, and they said, this is a duplex if the city says it's a duplex. So then we called the city, and they're like, no, that's a mixed use. You can have commercial and residential. So I guess I could have commercial in one part of it and residential in the other. And so then I said, well, can I finance it as single family? And they said no. So I was like, that's when I just started digging, well, what is this? And so I opened up a learning experience,
So maybe this is a question for both of you. So the previous owner was renting it as a duplex,
Yes.
and it doesn't matter if there's precedent on things. It's just what's being built, right?
Sorry, can you?
So
what do
like
you mean?
precedent on, like, even though I think you understand what I'm saying, Bill.
Yeah, so that doesn't set precedent because people, it's not unusual for people to over-occupy a building and use it illegally. The fact that they've done that doesn't establish a right.
Yeah. Is there any definite time, like say they do it for 50 years, it's illegal for 50 years, does it set any precedent, or is it still the same? Okay.
No, if it's illegal, it's illegal.
Okay. And are you, well, never mind. It's fine.
No, go ahead.
I was just asking, are you renting it currently, or?
I currently have my cousin downstairs, and I'm upstairs right now. So, yes.
So is there any way for him to become compliant? Is there adequate parking on this property for two structures? Basically, the dual use of this property is if he were to improve with another furnace and put in another electrical box, is there any way around that, since he's surrounded by duplexes and quads, and across the street there's commercial?
Well, the multifamily and commercial are permitted in the zone. The two-family and single families are legally non-conforming. He doesn't, by today's standards, he only has 2 parking spots, and I don't see any way for him to add parking on such a small lot. He'd surely go over lot coverage requirements. So it certainly wouldn't comply with today's requirements.
So a question, so we are currently voting on the adjustment to it becoming a duplex because of the precedent of it being a duplex previously, right? That's what
No.
what are we voting on then, if it's?
The city staff has given a determination that it's a single-family dwelling.
Right.
The applicant is asking you to overrule that based on whatever evidence.
Right.
The question before you is there sufficient evidence in the record or having been presented to overrule the staff determination? That's the question.
Right. But the question at hand is, was it a duplex before, right? That's
The question is, was it ever legally a duplex?
Yeah, that's the question. It's not just like, hey, it was a single family, can we come and change it to duplex? That's not our job as the board. It's planning commission or city council or whatever, right? This is ours, is just like determining, right? Because I'm personally more supportive of duplexes, but I'm not the planning commission or the city council to do that. This is a different adjustment, right? To say like, was it a duplex ever? Then we, by the basis of the information, change that. Okay.
The other thing that complicates this is that there was that time period from 2002 to 2014 where the previous owner used it as a single-family dwelling, and that would have lost any non-conforming right.
Yeah.
Which, Andrew, I guess it begs the question, or a couple questions, and I'm still confused on. We have 3 experts supposedly that came in and said these have always been separated, right? I think you brought 2
That
experts
was
in.
2 experts that said that, and also the city inspector
Correct.
said there's no rise or overrun that would make any sense, unless it was a really awkward, non-conforming staircase that wouldn't meet today's standards either. So if I go back to that staircase, there's no, he said, I can't see how this would have ever been connected, would have went up into the kitchen. I wish I had the floor plan up there.
But what we heard from Wes today was that those
That it was
they were
connected.
connected somehow.
So if it was, it would have been a very steep, old school staircase or something like that. Like he said, a very different type, so.
So if we set that issue aside, though, let's say that new evidence, if we want to call it that, I don't know if we're judges of any sort, we're a board. But if we set that new evidence aside, how do you respond to this abandonment claim by Provo City, though, where Provo City is saying that it was this non-conforming, legally non-conforming right was abandoned?
Okay, so I have talked with people that live all around there, and all of them say it's always been rented as a duplex, including next door neighbor that's been there quite some time. I believe they were illegally renting this as a duplex from everything I've looked up. And I know they got a single family residence from the city. I also believe that they rented it as a duplex through that. So I don't know if there's proof that it was the abandonment has to be proven, and there's some good evidence that shows that it was with that single family license they got. But I also believe that they rented it as a duplex through that. And the only grounds I have, and this is it, is the burden of proof of abandonment lies on someone has to prove somehow. I wish I had that ordinance. It's in the packet there that you have before you. It says the burden of proof, if there is an abandonment, it lies on the people showing there's, the burden of proof relies on the people saying that there was an abandonment. And I could see that there's some signs that maybe there was, but I don't see where the proof is on that.
Gotcha. Okay,
That's
so
probably my only leg to stand on. How about that?
Yeah, no,
Well, and also there's proof that these people didn't file everything in the way that they were supposed to, because it was, as you said, there was no permits on updates on the house. And so, and as he showed, there's lots of different changes over the years.
There is plumbing in the kitchen area from the 70s, so I do believe, even if it was connected, it could still be a duplex. If the door was locked, I don't know the statutes on that, but I do believe there was 2 separate entrances. Not wasting anybody's time, and I'm being sincere, that I believe that there was 2 separate residences throughout the ages. I really do. And
let me dig into that just a little bit deeper. I think Provo City, what they're saying is they've gone and they've contacted the experts with this Polk firm or service, and they're saying that what it's telling us is it seems to be a single family dwelling.
Yes.
Right. I think that's what they're telling us. I think you're telling us that you've talked to people and those people say that it's always been a rental. Is that our understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
And I know 5 or 6 people lived there before, and I know only 2 of them were on the mail registry, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand what they're saying, but I also think that there can be holes in that.
Yeah, as a renter, I can attest to that the Pole Creek's not gonna find everyone that is
So-
that's
so
actually
the-
living there.
Yeah, so the reason I'm here is I honestly believe it was built that way, and I think and I don't know when, they could have updated it from the 40s to the 70s, or it was put in the 70s, and I have no idea. And no one does, but I feel that it has been used that way sometime enough that I decided to throw $1,000 at it and see what I could find. So that's kind of where I'm at and why I'm here. And but I understand an abandonment could have happened, but I don't think it did. I think that they rented it. I talked to the lady you talked to's son, and he said, and he was going to call me back, and he never did. I actually went and knocked on their door because I was so sure about this. Yesterday up in North Orm, I found it from county records. And he said they got 2 separate rent checks, and I was trying to get that on file, but I didn't. So I believe, and I'm not just saying this because I believe that even though they had a single-family residence, they rented it as a duplex. I believe it was rented before as a duplex, and I have no clue how far back it was rented as a duplex. And so that's where I believe there's a continuous duplex that was rented, even though it was given a single-family dwelling license, rental license. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I wish I would have got that information, but I didn't. If I ever get that, maybe I can appeal it, and that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Could you, or do you have any pictures, or could you describe the plumbing in the basement? Is it in the stucco walls, or is it exterior to the stucco walls?
It is in the exterior wall. Does that make sense? In the foundational
Okay,
wall.
it's in the foundation wall, but it is in the wall. It's
In the
not-
wall. It's not framed out, if that's what you're asking. And I can, I don't have them.
So that would tell me that plumbing has always been there.
I don't know if it's always, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can't say whether it is or not. I had the restoration guy, his letters in the packet. I'd like it if you guys read that, and also the architect. But the restoration guy, from his professional opinion, was it was built or sometime thereafter soon converted to that. His biggest reason was you just don't put windows like that in houses. You see the small windows, and they just haven't been cut out, and they're bigger, and the plumbing was there, and the decades of change, lath and plaster in the interior walls were pretty showing that it was at least habited throughout the lath and plaster kind of went out in the 60s. So prior to the 60s, he said there's no real way to date it before that. So.
Good, thank you. Any
Yep.
other questions for the applicant? Andrew, nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the neighborhood chair here? Okay, the neighborhood chair is not. We'll now open it up for any public comment. So if anybody from the public would like to comment, please come forward and state your name if you would, and provide us with your comments. Just onlookers tonight. Nobody coming, okay. Well, we'll close the public comment, and we'll have some discussion amongst the board and see where we're at. Discussion.
I feel bad. I probably I want to be sympathetic to it, but I'm probably along the lines of if just knowing what I know, and then also just if it was a duplex, they probably would have filed for a duplex in 2004, because that's the smart thing to do. I mean, they're in real estate, you're in real estate. There's no reason to not file it as a duplex in 2004 if it were a duplex. And
Can I comment or no?
Sure, you're more welcome to come back up. Why don't you come back up, though, just so it can be recorded here?
To be fair, I don't think they know that knew if they had an option to do that. I mean, I don't think anyone told them you have an option to go look at this as a duplex.
okay,
So
yeah.
I mean, I think they probably would have tried, and they probably would have had a legit zone verification at that time. So I don't think they knew, because if they knew that that was a possibility, they would have done a zone verification, which wasn't done. I think they just went in for a dwelling rental license. It wasn't a verification of the house. So make sure we don't put those together.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I respond to that?
Go ahead.
On the rental dwelling application, they specified that it's a single-family dwelling. They had the option to check mark that it was a duplex. They also had the option to list it as 2 units as opposed to 1. And a rental dwelling license, it recognizes the legal use of a home, much like a zone verification. Owners still have the option to challenge a recognition of legal use in a rental dwelling license, as they do with the zone verification. So it would have been the same, would have still recognized it as a single family.
Do they have to get a rental dwelling license for every property they own or just one in general?
Every rental property, every property that they're not occupying, which is being inhabited by someone else, they would need to get a rental dwelling license.
Yeah, I think my only comment back, not that I'm trying, but like there probably would have been 2 addresses, which, I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but if it was a duplex and it was multi, then it probably would have had 2 addresses for them. I don't know if there's, there's situations where it is a duplex and there's only 1 address. I don't know if you see that very often, but.
I've never seen it. Sometimes instead of it being a formal address like 266 and 268, sometimes it comes up in records as like Unit B or Unit 2 or Apartment 2. But there's usually it shows up sometime in the past if it was considered a duplex at a certain point.
So at what point did it become commercial mixed use?
It's always been a commercial type of zone. DT1, it became in 2009. Before that, it was the Central Business District from 1974 until 2009, which was very similar.
Yeah, that's kind of some of my thoughts on it, at least.
Other comments? Tom, you have any comments? Okay. My thought is the reason I asked Andrew the question about the abandonment claim. It seems to me that may be the strongest piece of Provo City's issue here for getting the new evidence that we have. The reason I say that is because we go with the evidence that we have. Yeah. And if we had more evidence, and I'd want to, if the applicant decides to move forward with more evidence, that would be very, very helpful. But we go with what the evidence is. And if I'm weighing the evidence, just me personally, it seems to be more favored in Provo City's side versus receiving some testimony or something to that extent from neighbors and things like that. And the reason I say that is because that abandonment statute or ordinance is a 1-year statute, right? And the claim is that if it was abandoned for 1 year, only 1 year during this 100 years of time that we have nearly since this thing has been in existence, I'm hesitant to go against that. So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. No, it's not the best news it's only 2 of us. They can vote the other way too, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I'm also in agreement. While I'm highly empathetic, I think that without any more evidence that it is, as Provo says, that it is a single-family dwelling.
Okay, I'll speak up.
Yeah.
It would seem, I'd like to see some pictures of the plumbing and so forth, but it would seem that this basement was plumbed and readied for use. Why there's not an interior stairwell, if that's what was intended, is very unique. But we don't see the proof that we need for that. So I feel the same way that with what we have seen and with the abandonment law, we're kind of stuck where we're at.
I think we're ready to entertain a motion if somebody has one.
Yeah, I'll motion too. How do I motion? I motion to go to the vote, or do I motion to a direction?
Yeah, there you go.
I motion to sustain what the Provo City recommendation is. I don't know if that's the proper way to say it.
That's a proper motion.
No,
Wes, way to
no,
go.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Second by Tom.
Is
Any
there-
comment on the motion?
Just one before we go. If we provided more time, if we continued this, would you be able to come up with any more evidence?
I could talk with the.
Why don't you come to the podium if you would?
I really don't want to waste anybody's time, but I could talk with the lady. I talked with her son Randy, and he was going to talk to her and get back with me, but he didn't. And I could talk to her about getting 2 rent checks, because that's the only thing that would really make any sense in this situation. And then some neighbors, I can get some notaried statements, and that's about all I can get. So.
Meaning that they didn't actually abandon it, they were continually using it as a
Correct.
duplex,
That's
and
about-
even
that's
though they
about-
registered it, they hadn't abandoned.
Correct. But I would need to talk to her. I feel if there's that evidence, I can appeal it if needed.
Okay.
Any further comment on the motion? Okay, we have a motion pending.
Would you feel that is worth your time?
I mean, I'll come back up here. If that would sway people's decisions, absolutely. I mean, I can't. This property is unfinanceable at this time because of how it is. I can put a stairwell in, but it's not going to meet code. I honestly don't know what to do with this property at this point. And I don't think there was so would it be worth my time? Absolutely. But if them saying, yes, I got 2 separate rent checks, even though I rented to one family, funds came, if that would actually sway an opinion, yeah. But at the same time, I truly value everyone's time, especially Ellen's, who's put so much into this, that I feel defeated, and I almost just want to accept it. And if I could get that evidence, I would probably appeal it at that time. I know I'd have to go to the court at that motion. I don't even know how difficult that would be. So, and I don't know that she got 2 separate rent checks. That is what her son said. I never talked to this lady at all. I knocked on her door, and her son came, and Milton was her stepdad, which was the man who passed away who owned it before. So
I guess the question is it going to persuade Provo City to change their opinion as to if more evidence was forthcoming?
Not of this nature, because we would still be saying that was established a use that was not legal. In college towns, you have it's not unusual for people to over-occupy houses. And just the fact that you've done it doesn't make it legal. And the fact that you've done it for 40 years doesn't make it legal. It has to have met the code requirements at some point in history. We think it's very unlikely that this at any time met that requirement.
Thank you. So we have a motion pending. Wes, your motion is
Wasn't good enough.
well, it was a good motion, and it was seconded by Tom. The question is whether you want to pull your motion and make another motion to continue this matter, if that's what you would like to do, or if somebody else would like to make another motion.
I'll make a motion that we vote on this matter.
Yeah. I don't think I need to pull it.
We're ready to vote? Okay. All in favor of Wes's motion, say yes. Yes. Any opposed? All right, the motion is unanimous. Andrew, thank you again for your time and the way you did. Nice presentation. Ellen, thank you for your presentation. That was very well done as well. We have no further business, so we'll be adjourned. If that's the proper term. I don't know.